Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. In this video, we'll be considering a mini project on DataCamp titled Investigating Netflix Movies Project. It's a Python project and there are two major questions we'll be answering, and the first is using the data provided, will be finding out the most frequent movie duration in the 1990s, I beg your pardon. I'll be saving the answer as an integer called duration. And the second question is for us to find out movies, short action movies, released in the 1990s as well, and then we'll save the integer as short movie count. Alright, so with every project like this, the first thing you would like to do is to import the relevant library. Since our questions are kind of few and the focus is kind of streamlined for us, it's just two major libraries I'll be importing here: importing pandas as pd and importing matplotlib.pyplot as plt. Next thing we'll be doing is to read in the csv file using pd.read_csv, and then we include the file name, okay, and then this should generate the output. But you have to ensure that you write out the right file name like I did here, and then we have the output being given. Alright, so make this easier for us, we'll be assigning this name to this code to a variable name, so it's going to be easier for us to call that particular variable as we progress in the project. So I have decided to use the variable name df here, and here we're calling the head of the data frame to give us an idea of what the data frame looks like. Really looks clean. Show id type, you can see the various data column names, and then again to have a further overview about the data, we'll be considering df.info. This gives an idea of the number of columns the data frame has. It also gives us an idea of the number of null values, and it helps us also to check if our target columns are in the right data format. Remember that the focus is on release year and duration, so we want to ensure that both columns are in the data type integers that allows summation and all of those things that will make it easier for us to deduce our answers at the end of the day. Alright, so it pretty much looks like a clean data frame, because from what we can see, it has 4,812 entries, and then for each one of the columns they have the same number. So this implies that there's no column that has null values. And then we can see all the columns here. It has a number of columns, however our focus in this project will just be on the release year column and the duration column. So here I'm just writing a summary of what I can see from the information displayed in this output. The data frame has 11 columns, there are no null values, and the target columns are in the right data format. Alright, so next would like to check if the data frame has duplicate values, because the data frame pretty much looks clean, but you might still have some duplicate values there that can skew our data or might hinder us from having a good analysis at the end of the day. So the code for that is df.duplicated, and then this first brings out boolean values, then we sum everything up and then 0. So this implies that the data frame has no duplicate value. So pretty much looks clean, and then we can go ahead to subset our data from here. Alright, so just like I mentioned earlier, the project is kind of simple and beginner friendly, and the target here is just two columns, and that's the knowledge we'll be using to subset our data. Now when it comes to subsetting your data, there are several methods you can explore in subsetting the data, but before we get into subsetting the data, I'd like us to first critically look at the target column, just to appreciate the analysis when the subsetting is done. I'd like us to first look at the years in the release year column, just to have an overview of the number of years we have there, so that when we're able to streamline all of that later, it becomes easier for us to really appreciate the result, that now we have result just for the target years alone. And to do that, we'll be using value underscore count function, and what this code helps you to do is that it sums up all the unique values in that particular column, and that way you're able to see everything and appreciate the whole thing better. So here we'll be calling our target column df release here, and then we'll be doing dot value underscore count, and then the parentheses. So here you can see that you have a number of years. We have 2017, 2020, 1959. We have movies as far back as 1959 in the column. So this makes you appreciate the fact that okay, you have a lot, and what you really need here is just the ones from the 1990s, which would be from 1990 to 1991. So we'll be using the inbuilt function .between, and this takes two arguments, and the first argument is 1990 in this case, and the second argument we have is 1999. So what we're saying in this function is that we should this function should pick out movies from just the 1990s and 1999. Okay, so with this done, we'll assign this code to a variable named subset, and then we need to now call back the subset into our existing data frame. Now, because this is a pretty much simple project, I'm using the same variable name I called initially, but for some other projects you might decide to introduce a new variable name contrary to what you had before. So as you can see now, when we called the subset into the data frame, we now have our data frame now consisting of, you can even see the first entry, the release year is 1997 here, compared to what we had initially. And so for you to even appreciate it the more, we need to call off that function again, value count. Now if you can see, the number of years has reduced. You don't have movies as far back as 1959 any longer. Rather, you only have movies from 1990 to 1999. Okay, so this shows that our subsetting was a success, and then we can now go ahead to sum up what they need us to sum up, and then we can have our answer. Okay, all right, so the next step is just for us to appreciate, though this is actually not required for the project, but just to create a histogram rather, that helps you visualize the count of movies released in the 1990s, since this seems to be the focus of the project. All right, so we'll be using plt.histogram.east rather, I beg your pardon. We'll be using plt.east, and then we'll be calling the column, the target column we want in this case, and that's df release year. And to make our visualization a bit more pretty, we'll be including axis label, plt.x label, which is year, plt.y label as well, which would be the count or the frequency of movies released in the 1990s. Okay, and then we can have a title as well, plt.title, and in this case that's distribution of movies released in the 1990s. Okay, all right, so plt.show, and then to clean up the output a little, we'll be inserting a semicolon at the end. Okay, and then we enter that ship and then see the output that we have. So from what we can see, in the 1990s, the highest number of movies on Netflix released in the 1990s were premiered in 1998. So it looked as if the late 90s, they had more movies in the late 90s premiered on Netflix than movies in the early 90s. So we can write a conclusion on that and say more movies were added to the Netflix platform in the late 90s than what we had in the early 90s. So the comment I'll be putting in here is that Netflix featured a higher proportion of movies premiered in the late 1990s than in the than those released in the early 1990s, early and mid 1990s. All right, so with that done, we can move over to the next step, which is answering our first question now, which is what was the most frequent movie duration in the 1990s, and what to save the appropriate answer as an integer called duration. Okay, so here I had to copy what I wrote earlier just to make it quite faster, and then we can get right into solving that. So with the subsetting, finding this answer is relatively easy. So what we just have to do is to use another inbuilt function, .sum, that we're already used to. Okay, so what we want to do here is that we want to call again the target column is duration now, not release year like we had earlier. Okay, so df.duration, and then what we're trying to find is the most frequent movie. So remember our statistics. What we used to find the value with the highest frequency, remember .mode. So that's what we'll be using here. Just so we have an idea of the duration, the different durations we have loaded in that column, we'll be doing value underscore count again for the duration column. And here you can see that you have a wide range of duration for movies. From 94, we can see something as high as 191 and something as low as 94. All right, so then again, we get cut to the chase and deduce the most frequent duration. We'll be using, just like I mentioned earlier, we'll be using the mode inbuilt function to deduce the most frequent movies or the most frequent movie duration in the 1990s. All right, so we'll just copy out that column name, df duration dot mode, and then we find our answer. So what you can see here is that from this indicates that the movie with the most frequent movie duration in the 1990s is 94 minutes. So we can write our conclusion there and say the most frequent movie duration in the 1990s is 94 minutes. Okay, so with that done, and remember that they had initially said that the answer should be saved as a variable name called duration. So we have to ensure that we adhere to this. Otherwise, if you try and do this on DataCamp without you assigning it the right variable name, you might not be marked correctly. So you have to ensure that you write your answer, you assign the variable name that has been indicated for your answer. Also, this is not required because it's obviously an integer, but just to be sure again, one confirm that the data type of the variable duration, and that's what I was trying to do here. Okay, here I assigned the variable name duration, and then just to confirm that the data type is an integer, we just do duration. Since we've assigned it the variable name already, we just do duration dot dtype, meaning data type, and then you can see that the input indicates that duration is an integer. So quickly we'll move on to the next question, and here I just copied and pasted the second question. And in this question, we're told that a movie is considered short if it is less than 90 minutes. So we should count the number of short action movies released in the 1990s and save this integer again as a variable name called short movie count. All right, so checking just appreciate the whole thing. We just want to check out the different movie types, the genres that we have in the data frame. Again, my favorite code for that is value underscore count, and that's what we'll be exploring again here. So we just copy out the data name. So you have to be careful to ensure that you copy out the column name rather correctly, and so genre, that's what we're focusing on here, and then dot value underscore count, and then that gives you an idea, okay, of the different types of genres you have of the movies on the Netflix platform. And so here you can see you have action 48 of in the data frame that we were provided. I haven't subsetted it to, limited it to just movies in the 1990s. You have action movies about 48, dramas 44, and down to, cult movies to docu series 1 and all of that. So remember that our target in this case is just the action movies alone. So we want to streamline our answers to that. And again, to just appreciate this as well, visualization actually is not one of what is required for the project. But I just wanted us to appreciate, the different genres you have loaded in this data frame, particularly for movies in the 1990s. And so for this purpose, we'll be creating a bar plot for this. And so I decided to just use, to streamline what we have, just df genre.value count, and then we'll be using plot, and the kind of bar we'll be using is plot we'll be using is bar, and to regulate the size we'll be using fixed size 8. Okay, and then let's see the output first. Okay, I just included a semicolon to clean the output a little. So from what we can see, it's nice, but we need to rotate the labels to be 0, and then have a wider plus. So now it's looking better. So you have action. So it's looking, so again, let's just beautify it a little bit more by including axis label and X label, Y label, as well as the title and all of that. Okay, so X label, movie genre, PLT, Y label, count of movies, and then the title, genres of movies released in the 1990s. Okay. Alright, so here we have it looking a bit more cleaner, and we have, okay, so here you have it. So the action movies, the output is better appreciated here. The action movies had the highest proportion of movies, of all the movies in the 1990s, and you have this is closely followed by dramas, comedies and the likes, and the least of all is docu-series. So what I did here is just to write a summary of what the visualization depicts. So action movies had the highest proportion of movies released. Then we can go ahead to subset the data to obtain short movies. And remember that their definition for short movies would be movies that has a duration less than 90 minutes. And here, so we want a subset that consists of movies released in the 1990s that has a duration less than 90 minutes and at the same time is an action movie. Alright, so that's what we'll be attempting to subset next. Okay, so to do that, we'll be needing to create another variable name that will pass on this information to. Alright, so that's what we'll be doing next. Alright, so I decided to use the variable name short action movies. You can decide to use any variable name of your choice because this particular variable name is not required as a final answer. Alright, so short action movies equals DF genre. So we're saying GF genre, that is, an action movie. That's why we're using the double equal to sign here and not the single one. Okay, any genre assigned to that name action, and then the second condition, if you remember, is that the duration has to be less than 90 minutes. So that's why we're combining both of them here, and then we're using the and sign for that. Okay, so we put both of them in simple sentences so that this won't throw an error at all, and that's what we have here. So we have DF genre that are action movies, and then movies with duration that are less than 90 minutes. Okay, so to see if this will run, I just want to copy and then paste the variable name we've created and then run the cell. Okay, so if you can see, the output are Boolean values. As we know, when it comes to Boolean values, false is regarded as 0, and for every case where you have this condition as true, is regarded as true. The integer value for that will be 1. So if we make an attempt to sum, what this will give us at the end of the day, that should give you a true reflection of the total sum of movies that are short by their definition and then that are action movies. So remember that they have already stipulated a particular variable name that we're to use. So that's what we'll be using here to finalize that. So the name they have stipulated is short movies count. Okay, so that's what we're using here. So, and then we're using the inbuilt function .sum to sum up, the Boolean output that we have earlier to reflect the total number of movies that are short and has a duration less than 90 minutes. So we'll be using this variable name we've created earlier, short action movies, and then I just copied and pasted that, and then did .sum, and then that gives us the total number of movies that were released in the 1990s and has a short duration less than 90 minutes. Okay, so here if we run that, we see that the output we have is 7. So what this implies is that only 7 action movies with durations that had duration less than 90 minutes were premiered in the 1990s. That is, for movies available on the Netflix platform, only 7 of them premiered in the 1990s had a short duration less than 90 minutes, and then were also action movies at the same time. Alright, so this pretty much sums up the whole project. Thanks for watching, and please give the video a thumbs up if you like the video, and also I'd appreciate you subscribing to the channel for more valuable content. Thank you. Bye. Kindly subscribe for more valuable content. Thanks.